Hello everyone, my name is Michael SK and welcome back to Umineko When They Cry episode 3. Shannon is back. She has been resurrected by not only Beatrice, but by her fiancé George. Yes, he has displayed a little bit of magic himself. With instruction from Beatrice, the two of them were able to bring Shannon back. It's a little bit of an interesting case because Beatrice technically wasn't even the one who killed Shannon this time around, and she was given a very peaceful and swift death. But now she's back. You know, there's a lot of questions to ask here, and the big one is, how do we connect this to a realistic story? No, you helped too, George.
ありがとう、ベアトリーチェ。
いや、わらわは何もできなかった。シャノンを蘇らせたのは、そなたの魔力。
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, he stepped up here.
奇跡を成し遂げる後ろ宮の地。
Oh, don't start talking about miracles here. I am so sick and tired of hearing about miracles. We don't talk about those anymore.
わらわなど足元にも及ばぬほどの凄まじき魔力であったぞ。わらわなどまだまだ見習いの域を出ぬか。今こそ身の程を知ろうぞ。
I'm sure this was a learning experience for everyone involved. Beato staggered backwards. Her physical strength was clearly exhausted. She had humbly said that George's power alone had revived Shannon, but Beato had also used all of her magical and physical strength. And she reflected upon how difficult it was to revive a single life, something that she'd been able to play around with however she wanted to in the past. The couple kept on embracing each other tightly. By doing that, those feelings that couldn't be communicated with a billion words were shared.
ありがとう、ベアトリーチェ。君は僕たちの恩人だ。
Oh, careful now.
ありがとうございます。
You don't want to be indebted to a witch or a genie. Really, neither of those or anything similar.
決して忘れません。
よせよせ、愛し合う二人に感謝されては下道の極みと恐れられたわらわには、わらわのことは気にするな、存分に。再会を。
You exhausted or something? Beato, who was leaning with her back against the wall, slid down the wall and sat. How many centuries had it been since she last grew this tired from using magic? I probably haven't been this tired since the time I first succeeded in magic. Didn't teacher praise me that time? Oh, but didn't I kill that same teacher who praised me? Don't be so naive, Beatrice. Isn't that what killing means?
ようやく魔法の使い方を思い出したようですね。
頭ん中酸欠でカラッカラで思い出すもヘチマもねえぜ。それよりあんた殺したじゃねえかよ。現れるんじゃねえよ。
Yeah, I'm actually very curious about how Virgilia has been appearing and having such an impact with Battler as she has been.
あなたが未だに私を生かしていますよ。だからこうして現れられます。もっとも、あなたの頭を撫でに来たわけでもありませんが。
無様なわらわをわざわざ嘲笑いに来たかよ。それに隠居までした魔女が今さら頭なんか撫でられちゃ。
そうですね。一人前どころか現役を退いたと豪語するあなたなのに、今頃になって魔法の使い方を覚えたなど恥ずかしくて誰にも言えませんね。
だな、内緒にしてくれよ、お嬢様。
Beato gazed at the couple hugging each other with a sense of pleasant despondency.
愛か。
Yes, we've heard that word used a few times here and there in the past couple episodes.
勝てねえな。
Uh-oh.
45データ受領
Uh-oh.
射
Uh-oh.
撃準備完了弾種選定装填
Looks like this reunion is not lasting all that long.
410射撃2
Well, goodbye somebody here. The gold snake arrow fired by the Chesters weaved its way through the bushes in the rose garden, weaved its way through the hedges, and climbed the stone steps towards the mansion's entrance, aiming for the keyhole. It weaved through the corridors and flew into the keyhole on the door to the parlor. It happened in an instant. One could hardly blame Beato, who was completely worn out for not noticing it beforehand. What if Beatrice is the one that gets killed here? Right before Beato's eyes, the gold snake flew in through the keyhole, surrounded the two lovers, and pierced the two hearts in a blink of an eye. Furthermore, the gold snake faithfully pierced a hole through Shannon's chest once more. Poor girl. The two hearts were pierced by that gold snake. No, by that gold sewing thread of the new brutal witch's furniture. And it happened in an instant, mocking the amount of effort it had taken to revive Shannon. That is very unfortunate. So much for all that hard work and all of this. Before Beato's shocked eyes, the two fell over and landed on the floor.
ジョージ。シャノン。
ありがとうベアトリーチェわずかの間でも会わせてくれてありがとう
George spent his last breath thanking Beato and died alongside the one he loved. I mean, he did even, wish to see her, if just for like a split moment, right? He got that wish. The gold snake, which still sewed the two in place, spun like a large cyclone, revolving around the inside of the parlor. It was searching for further prey in that room. I mean, there is Beatrice here. Then the tip of the snake met Beato's gaze. In that instant, Beato was prepared to die. Oh, hello. At that moment, Virgilia stood in front of her, the fingers of both her hands drawing a seal. I guess she is still around, even in the scope of the story. Instantly gold-colored gold leaf buried the inside of the parlor. It was like a blizzard of gold.
ベアト、今のうちに逃げて。シエスタの黄金球からは誰も逃れられない。
Yeah, so far.
410標的疾患200魔法機マシ45了解索敵変更対人画像追尾方式標的再補足410へデータリンク410データ受領すっとろいに先代様来て来て来て着弾
There's no way they're gonna take out Beatrice here, right? Maybe Virgilia, sure, but Virgilia is technically already dead. Prey targeted by the Chester sisters' golden bow did not escape. It could not be blocked. No magical barrier could even dream of blocking it without being multi-layered. The gap opened during the instant of confusion caused by Virgilia's deception magic was Beato's only chance to escape. And it was the only chance to make the sisters confuse Virgilia for Beato. As Virgilia spread her arms wide, blocking the way to her beloved disciple, the gold snake pierced straight through her heart. After sneaking it through the keyhole, the snake shot through George, Shannon, and then Virgilia in an instant, completely failing to notice Beato as she used that instant to escape. But damn, they were after her though. They were. As soon as Virgilia saw that Beato had gotten away, she died. This time for realsies. The strength left her body, and like gold dust drifting with the wind, her form was erased. Beato completely erased all traces of her magical power. became gold butterflies and passed through the wall, escaping to the wind and rain outside. Damn. She's actually pissed. Beato felt regret from the bottom of her heart. Why? Because she had been attacked by the new witch? Probably not. Of course, she hated losing her teacher. And even more importantly, Beato was enraged at the barbarism that had boorishly stolen away the reunion between two lovers. Beato had poured out almost all of her magical power to reunite them, even though the result had been a miracle. The time it took to steal that away had been so ridiculously short. Beato trembled at the barbarous cruelty that had brought about such an abrupt end. Besides, this was the true form of the act she herself had committed up until that point. So just as strongly as Beato hated the new witch, she also looked at her previous self with disgust. She's changing. She's not really the same person or same witch that we've known since the beginning. But now she had to escape. If she was targeted next, she would probably lose her life. To think that a chess player had descended thinking they were like a god, only to be attacked by the pieces. I know. What a wacky turn of events.
45着弾確認標的資産間違いなく先代様を撃破しました
Uh-huh.
また私たちの撃墜気象が増えちまうねにひ愛し合う二人なんだっけ引き裂いて一度合わせて二度もう一度引き裂いて三度楽しめるそのついでにあのクソうるさいババアまでさよならできてロノウェイ文句ないわよね
Oh, I'm sure he has some.
ございませんベアトリーチェ様
あいつは魔女の碑文の儀式を妨害したのよ
She actually did, though. She actually did. She tried to undo it.
第一のバンド生贄を勝手に蘇らせて私の儀式を妨害したわ文句言われる筋合いなんかなんにもないわよしかしずるいなあいつは死体を残さないのね
Yep, nothing to resurrect here, huh?
あのババアも思いっきり何度も無限にいじめ殺して遊んでやろうと思ったのに
Yeah, I don't know how he feels necessarily, but I know for a fact that he's not fully on board with all this crazy shit. Definitely not. All right, what's going on here? There's really not many people left. It's Ava. It's Ava and the two kids, Battler and Jessica. That's it. Oh, and Nanjo, I suppose. I keep forgetting about him. Sorry.
いつってあれは何時くらいだったっけ
確か4時か5時くらいだったかな最低でも1時間以上は前だよ
俺たち眠くなってその後は多分居眠りしてたしでも多分ジェシカの言う通りだと思うぜ1時間か2時間くらい前だった
私もそのくらいの頃だと今日コーヒーのおかわりはいるかと聞かれましたからな
Okay, so that did indeed happen. So, really all we can do here, from what I understand, to connect things to a realistic story, is that George, probably felt like shit. His mind was not working because of the fact that he just lost his father and his the love of his life, basically. That he probably decided, all right, well, I'm going to jump out the window and, I guess, go somewhere and die. Maybe not necessarily suicide, but definitely get killed by somebody. Something hard to believe had happened. Apparently, when Aunt Ava had left for a second to wash her hands, Uncle Kraus and Aunt Natsuki had disappeared. Which that is also hard to explain, like what happened to those two? There's no way they went hiding somewhere. Of course, the doors and windows had all been rigorously checked, and all were locked from the inside. Not one of them was broken. And that wasn't just true for the first floor, the second floor was the same. Again, all the doors and windows had locks built in a way that made it impossible to lock them from the outside. In other words, there was no way that Uncle Kraus and Aunt Natsuki had gone outside, and yet they could not be found. Furthermore, they weren't the only ones who had disappeared, so had George Aniki of all people. George Aniki had left saying he was going to get more coffee, and had gone downstairs more than an hour earlier, but he actually never did go downstairs as far as we can tell. We'd assumed that he was having a conversation with Aunt Ava and the rest, but Aunt Ava, who had been in the lobby the whole time, said that no one had come down. Since all the doors and windows were locked from the inside, it was unthinkable that they had gone outside. However, 3 humans had evaporated from this barricaded guest house, which had become a perfect closed room. I was just about to say, based on the information that we're getting here, can anybody really enter from the outside unless maybe they have a key? I'm not really sure. In a situation like this, we couldn't imagine that this was because they were playing hide and seek and trying to scare us with a prank. It was probably reasonable to assume that they had been caught up in this crime. Damn, it is crazy just with how big of a group we had in the beginning, how little we are now at, how much we have dwindled down. Like, we really shouldn't have been able to dwindle down as much as we've had. Like, this is just ridiculous. When Aunt Ava had learned that her only son was missing, she had gone half insane, running from room to room and yelling his name. And Jessica, who had suddenly lost both of her parents, had chased after her. Cries of George, George, and Mom, Dad had continued to echo through the guest house for some time. I think George had said something about wanting to see Shannon's dead face. It would be reasonable to assume that he had snuck out of the guest house and went to the mansion. But I didn't have a clue about Uncle Kraus and Aunt Natsuhi. Did they see him leave and then go to the mansion to search for him? Honestly, that's actually kind of reasonable, no? Like, yeah, the events are a little out of order, but for things to kind of piece together, that does make some sense. Without even telling Aunt Ava. At this rate, it's only a matter of time before we start planning to leave the guest house to go search for them. When that time comes, I will agree. And then we will die. We thought staying holed up in the guest house would be safe, which is why our big happy group of 12 people locked themselves up here this morning. And yet now there's only 4 of us left. That means staying here is no longer, wait, what? That means staying here is no guarantee of safety. I don't know what I was trying to say, no longer. I think I was trying to say no longer a guarantee of safety. Anyways, however, there's one thing we can't afford to forget. All the doors and windows were locked from the inside. This is a closed room. How did they manage to vanish from this place? Yeah, these closed room situations, they never cease to amaze me with how commonly they come up here. We searched around thoroughly. However, we couldn't find any traces of someone hiding. The 3 of them had almost certainly been taken outside the guest house.
どうやってでしょう。まさか隠し扉とかがあるとか。
隠し扉?
No, I don't think so.
扉も窓も外から閉めることは構造上不可能です。釣り糸の類を使ってもこの構造では無理でしょうな。となれば扉や窓以外から出たと考えるのが妥当でしょう。
確かにそういう論法にもなるだろうよ。隠し扉が存在しないなんて断言は誰にもできない。しかしそういう発想に飛躍する前に俺はもっとシンプルな可能性も疑ってる。
と申しますと?
For some time, Battler had been opening windows, opening shutters, and checking outside, repeating this for each window.
この窓は静かだな。なるほど。この窓は他と違って、
Oh, yeah, there we
建物の
go.
構造上、風が吹き込まないわけか。
Interesting. So, Battler has actually just connected a reason as to why, when that window, from our perspective that we saw, that was open magically thanks to Beatrice, that window didn't make a single noise, right? It was completely quiet. That was actually stated as a detail here in the reading. So, that could mean that this is just, based on what he said and what George said earlier. That because of these things, it's just a naturally quiet window.
そのようですな。こんなにも外は風雨なのに、雨も風も入ってこないとは不思議な気持ちです。
南條先生、今窓を開けた時、音を感じたかい？
いえ、気にはなりませんでしたな。よく油が効いていると思います。
つまり誰も見ていない廊下の窓からひょろっと抜け出すことは可能なわけだ。
And that's probably what
しかも
happened.
この窓なら
I don't think
風も
George
吹き込ま
went
ないが
flying in the sky like what we
風
saw,
圧でカー
but
テンや
he
扉が
probably used
音を
this
立て
as
る
his
こともない
exit.
静かなもんさ。
Battler leaned forward and looked at the ground below. He was searching for some sign that George jumped down, but at a glance he didn't see any mark like that on the grass in the middle of the pouring rain.
こういう窓が1階にもあるのかもしれない。誰にも気づかれずに表へ出ることは可能だぜ。
しかし扉はおろか、窓はすべて施錠されて鎧戸まで閉まっていましたぞ。出ることは可能でも閉めることは不可
Yeah,
能。
okay. Yeah, I mean, that goes back on the closed room argument,
閉
actually.
められるぜ。こうやってカチャン。
Battler closed the window and locked it as though this was perfectly obvious.
まさかバトラさんが
Wait, can you lock it from the outside?
最後に中の人間が鍵を閉めればこんな密室は朝飯前だ。
しかしそれではそれでは
What does it mean? Najo turned pale and shook his head several times, because the thing Battler had said had forced him to face a fact that was frightening even to imagine.
俺の想像したトリックならな。しかしこんなトリックを使えば怪しまれる人物は極めて限定される。
He didn't want to say it in front of Najo, but after eliminating Jessica, who had been with him the whole time, only Najo and Ava could have done it.
私はそんなことをしませんぞ。誓ってもいい。
となると
I see.
エヴァおばさんと南條先生のアリバイ合戦ってことになる。俺たちは二人とも怪しんでそれぞれを別々に監禁すればいいだけの話。逆に言えばこのトリックはもっと生存者が多ければ有効かもしれないが、これだけ人数が減った状況下では大して有効ではないんだ。
No, on the contrary, there'd be a chance of having your own neck strangled by using it. It would have been more advantageous to make it look like the culprit was outside, to intentionally leave a door unlocked or break a window.
もしこの失踪劇が今日の昼にでも起これば、俺は自信満々にこの説を発表しただろうよ。だがこの段階に至っては全然自信が持てないぜ。何なんだこいつは。一体何を意味してやがるんだこの密室はよ。
やはりその。
なんだい南條先生、思いつきでもいいから言ってくれよ。
Najo looked like he was trying to swallow his words, even though he had thought of something, so I urged him on. After Dr. Najo refused several times, saying that it was just a foolish idea, he finally said it out loud.
そのやはりこれは本当に魔女の仕業ではないのかと。
Oh, be very careful saying that.
バカバカしい。魔女なんているわけがねえぜ。
Okay, and Battler is in full denial. So in the previous video, I was thinking that we were with Battler's perspective, but it was actually George's. And I was going to point out, damn, this is 2 in a row that Battler's actually believing that, yeah, there's definitely a witch here. But no, here he is standing his ground as we saw in episode 1.
人間にはできないことをやってのけるからこそ、自分を魔女だと認めさせたいに違いないのです。私はこのゲストハウス全体の密室からの失踪は、そういう魔女からのメッセージだと感じています。考えてはならないのです。意味なんてきっとないのです。私は恐ろしい。
Oh, don't worry, Nanjo, I am too. We're all a little scared. Life is scary. As Dr. Nanjo shook with fear, it looked like he was trying to erase the fearsome thoughts that he kept imagining one after another. Oh, hello. When we went down the stairs, Aunt Ava and Jessica were enraged, and were each persistent in their desire to leave this place and search for their respective families. It was a desire that naturally hits those who can no longer see their family. Aunt Ava told Dr. Nanjo and me to stay here, but I shook my head and started walking.
もう引きこもりはたくさんだぜ。俺も外の空気を吸いたくなってきた。
ああ、行くならさっさと行こうぜ。もうこんなところに閉じこもってるのは真っ平さ。
Well, let's all go die.
早く父さんや母さんやジョージ兄さんを探しに行こう。
The blood had all risen to Jessica's head. I hope it doesn't set off her asthma. Kind of keep forgetting about that. You know, something interesting here is that we don't know about the corpses yet. It's been a while, but we don't know about the corpses.
南條先生はどうする？一人で留守番してるかい？
Yeah, we really need to stay together as a group no matter what. Rather than holding up alone in a guest house whose security was by no means guaranteed, it would be better to enter a danger zone as a group of 4 people. Aunt Ava had a gun. Moving separately from her was almost like asking to be made into the next victim. I mean, if we all stick together, and none of us is the enemy, we should be okay. In this way, the 4 of us decided to leave the guest house. Even though it should have been safe to barricade ourselves here, we lost 8 people after doing so. It was almost as though this was a holding cell from which the sacrifices could just be killed one after another. We removed the chain, unlocked the front door, and opened it. It was already pitch black. While there were some lights outside the dimly lit... wait, hold on. While there were some lights outside that dimly lit the path... What the fuck? Oh, okay, you know what? No, I'm just being stupid. They didn't have enough power to pierce the darkness that some suspicious person might be hiding in. I am a little tired, by the way, but I don't want to use that as my excuse for, you know, failing to read in this one. That's just a me thing. Still holding her gun, Aunt Ava had dashed out without an umbrella. Jessica followed after her. After glancing at each other, Dr. Nanjo and I chased after them. Yeah, we really need to stay together as a group, guys. What in the world is happening in this mansion, on this island? I've just been shut up in the guest house with the rest of the cousins since yesterday, so I don't know anything about what's going on outside. Just what is happening that I don't know about outside this room, in the mansion, on this island? Everything is happening, everything is proceeding, and everything is ending without my knowing it. Somewhere in my heart, I've already started giving up. Most likely not one of us will see tomorrow morning. When the seagulls cry, nobody will be left alive. That's actually a very accurate prediction here. That's actually kind of how it's been going in all these episodes. It's just been death after death, and then nobody's alive. I wonder what's going to happen next year, though. I mean, I think we're really just in the end game. Wait. Did we find them? Are they here? Okay, yeah, I think we found them. Jessica's woeful voice echoed throughout the rose garden. Perhaps it was the intuition of a person who lived on this island. After checking the part of the rose garden where Aunt Rosa and Maria had fallen and seeing nothing, Jessica went to look in the arbor next. And there they were. Normally, the arbor was probably a wonderful location to enjoy tea peacefully while appreciating the roses on a good sunny day. Maybe even Uncle Kraus and Aunt Natsuhi had days when they relaxed and enjoyed their tea together here. However, in that arbor lay their corpses. At least they aren't drenched in the rain like Aunt Rosa and Maria had been. But there was no way I could say that out loud to Jessica at the moment. Probably ever, to be honest. Let's be a little mindful, you know? And let us also read the updates on their character logs. I don't know why we're always on the witch side there. Okay, we will start with Kraus. Corpse discovered in the Rose Garden Arbor. The cause of death is assumed to be strangulation by a cord-shaped object. A stake-shaped weapon was sticking out of his thigh. If not for the epitaph, stakes wouldn't even be needed. What a pain. And Natsuhi, also discovered in the arbor, the cause of death, pretty much the same. In her calf, why does the epitaph even need to be followed in the first place? A game? That's actually a really good question. Why are we going this far, right? Why does this have to be followed? Even so, somebody has already, you know, solved the mystery. The game should be over. But no, supposedly it's a whole different witch. Something else is going on when we think about that whole process here.
何か細いもので締めた跡が残っている。
だな、まさかこっちが主たる死因のわけはねえだろうよ。
Right there lay two stake-like weapons decorated with an occult design, which had been found driven into Uncle Krause's thigh area and near Aunt Natsuhi's calf. Honestly, I think this is the furthest along that Krause has made it, so, you know, good on him. And I said this before jokingly, but damn, these two were not annoying whatsoever in this episode, so I'll give them a pass. When we found these sticking out of my parents' forehead and chest, we decided to preserve the crime scene and leave them for the police. But Jessica didn't care about such matters and immediately pulled the stakes out of her parents' forsaken bodies.
これで頭、胸、腹、膝、
Yeah, what do you think about everything,
足の
Ava?
5つをえぐられた死体が出たわけね。
The supposed winner of this game.
犯人め、殺してやる。
Oh yeah, there was that emotion from episode 2.
第8の番まではこれで終わったわ。続くは第9の番なの。魔女は蘇り、誰も生き残れはしない。上等だぜ。魔女が蘇るってことは、犯人が堂々と姿を現してくれるってことなんだろう。
Okay, well, according to the witch's argument here on strength and all that, them saying what they're saying here is actually really bad because they are more and more believing in the possibility of there being witches and magic and all of that that is running the show with this, you know, this whole riddle.
何が誰も生き残れないだ。
And that basically gives them the opening that they need
私が殺してやる。
in order to swoop on in and do all their crazy shit.
この手で絶対に殺してやる。
Jessica let her emotions flow out as she howled furiously. To avoid being crushed by grief, she could do nothing but resist it with anger.
まだジョージが見つかってないわ。
Yeah, but I'm sure things don't bode well for him,
ここにい
based
た
on
け
what
れ
we
ばい
just
る
saw
という
here.
私は屋敷へ行くわ。
エヴァさん、バラバラに行動してはいけない。
Yeah, seriously.
みんなで一緒に行動しなくては危険。
兄さんたちはもうどうしようもないわ。でもジョージはまだどこかで生きているかもしれない。ここで時間を潰してる暇はないのよ。
As Aunt Ava screamed this, Jessica glared at her. Honestly, I hate to say it, but Ava's got a little bit of a point. She had no more time to bother about the dead. Yeah, we'll see what her argument is once we find George. She was more concerned for the safety of her only son, who had yet to be seen.
ジェシカちゃんはここでお父さんとお母さんのそばにいるといい。私はちょっと屋敷に行ってくるわ。バトラ君も南條先生もここにいてくれていい。
After arbitrarily saying this, Aunt Ava rushed out of the arbor. No, seriously, we do need to stay together. Like, this is just fucking stupid. I called out to stop her, but there was just no way she would listen. However, being alone in this situation meant nothing short of death. If we silently watched her leave, it would be the same as letting her die. Since Aunt Ava was unwilling to stop, we had no choice but to follow her. And while it may be cruel to say so, Uncle Krause and Aunt Natsuhi were already dead, so there was nothing more we could do for them. No, I mean, I think that's completely understandable. I guess, yeah, it's kind of fucked up to admit it, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, they're family to everybody here, minus Nanjo, but they're dead. There's a murderer still out there. There's a high risk of dying. So let's stay together and move on. In the end, we had no choice but to console Jessica and head for the mansion together. Fortunately, Jessica stood up. Perhaps she had been able to break free from her grief. But what had surfaced in its place was an expression like a demon's.
私がこの手でぶっ殺して。
Yeah, again, we saw something like this in episode 2, kinda.
行こうぜバトラー。犯人を見つけたら
And probably in episode 1, too.
私が絶対に殺す。
俺も親父たちの仇があるんだ。悪いが早いもん勝ちだぜ。
そうだな。ぶっ殺してやろうぜ。
At my words, Jessica finally seemed to feel like we sympathized with her emotions. She still had that dark expression, but I felt that Jessica had regained some of her sanity. We took off, chasing after Aunt Ava. Through the rose garden, up the stone steps, running at full speed towards the mansion whose large, intimidating shadow flashed in the lightning. With this, the murders of the epitaph had reached the 8th twilight. And then on the 9th twilight, the witch shall revive. None shall be left alive. I will most likely lose my life, but at the very least, I want to burn the truth into my eyes. We all do, really. That's the only thing motivating me to move forward right now. Or to move at all, I guess is what that said. But we were able to meet with Aunt Ava, who was having trouble with the lock to the front door. It seemed that all the blood had risen to Aunt Ava's head. That was probably making her fingers clumsy. It looked like she couldn't even handle the simple task of inserting the key into the lock. Have you guys actually ever had that issue? Like, where you just, you know, whether it was by emotion or, you know, maybe exhaustion or whatever, just for some fucking reason, you cannot open the goddamn door. You can't unlock it. You know, whether your aim is shit and you just can't put the key in the keyhole, or you just can't seem to unlock it when the key is in the keyhole. It's just so goddamn frustrating. Am I not the only one that has problems with locks at times? You know? I don't know. Then there was a faint sound. The sound of the door unlocking. She did it. Just as though it had waited for her, or waited for all the survivors to unite before opening. It felt to me as though the malicious mansion was trying to swallow up all the remaining humans at once. Oh, here we go. I mean, with this, we really are entering the endgame of this episode. We're all entering the mansion. There's 4 of us left. There's really not much more that we have to go through here, I'm sure. Perhaps the stench that erupted outwards the instant the door opened could not be described as just a smell. It wasn't just the charred smell from Grandfather. I think it also have contained the regrets of the servants and Dad's group. All of the dead. What did it mean as it floated out, overwhelming us? Was it the cry of the dead telling us not to enter? However, Aunt Ava did not even flinch at something like that. And we who had to chase after her, were forced to step into the mansion even after receiving that message.
Georgie! Georgie! 聞こえたら返事をしなさい!
Yes, let's shout.
Georgie!
Into the giant-ass mansion that we have not been in for the entirety of the day. Aunt Ava shouted at the top of her lungs. Considering the situation, it's probably far too optimistic to imagine that he's alive. When we started following Aunt Ava's example and calling out George's name in loud voices, Aunt Ava spotted something and stopped walking. She was standing in front of the door to the parlor. Oh, there we go.
これは南條先生ちょっと来てもらえるかしら
何事ですかな
Honestly, big props to Dr. Nanjo for making it to the end in this one. He was so close in episode 1, but just, you know, bad luck. Same thing in episode 2. You know, it was just bad luck. I had heard about the eerie magic circles written on doors like the one in the parlor from the adults. Eerie is the only word to describe that thing. Okay, so this is pretty interesting. This is the first time we're seeing a magic circle with Ava Beatrice, is it not? Like, I don't think we've seen magic circles utilized with the new Beatrice. Only Ava Beatrice has been going about things in such a different way and has not relied on these. So why now, right? Why now do we have a magic circle popping up? Eerie is the only word to describe that thing. If I'm wrong, by the way, let me know. Like, my memory is apparently really bad with this goddamn series. And in general. Which is scribbled with a deep red paint reminiscent of blood so that it slowly dripped down. I'm pretty sure the magic circles that we've seen so far were utilized during the first Twilight to basically kill the first 6. And that was with the closed room situation. This is completely different. A magic circle hasn't been used with any of the other people as we've come across their deaths kind of out in the open. However, that had supposedly been there since this morning. Oh, okay, never mind. Wondering why Aunt Ava, who had supposedly seen it already, would think it odd now, Jessica and I stared at the door.
確かにこんな数字が書かれていた記憶はありません。
Numbers.
ええ、なかったわ。不気味な魔法文字みたいなのは書かれていたけど、数字は書かれていなかった。
Wait, so it changed? From what the two of them said, only the magic circle had been there this morning. However, right now, there were 8 digits written near the upper part of the magic circle. Ugh. What does that symbolize? Is that like a... No, that's not a date, is it? 07151129. Is that like something where, like, if you flip it, it actually, like, says a word? I don't think so. I don't know why, but, like, the beginning of it feels like a date, right? You know, 0715. Like, if this is Western, we're using the Western date format, July 15th. But, like, the 1129, that sticks out in a different way. So I don't think so. I really don't know about that. I didn't know what it meant, but I didn't even want to imagine what someone had been thinking when they wrote it. I mean, if it has to do with George, what would this number symbolize if it was George and Shannon specifically, right? I mean, that would basically be the whole deal. The parlor is where George had went to, supposedly. So what would that mean? Or could these numbers equate to letters? I wonder. No, that wouldn't work because of the 0. I don't know. Hold on. No, I don't think so. But maybe? No, I don't. Okay, no. I'm trying to think of what it could be. I was thinking if it was letters and maybe it was like, it was 07, 15, 11, and 29, then we can go through the alphabet, but 29 is past 26, so that's not going to work. I don't know, man. I don't know, but I feel like this looks solvable. Something about this just kind of stands out so goddamn much. It was drawn with the same paint as the magic circle, which could also be blood, but it had clearly been written very recently. The way it had dried and the condition of the color was completely different from the magic circle part.
どうせ魔法的な意味があるんだろうぜ。深く考えたって意味なんかあるわけもないさ。
Now, there's a point to everything I feel in this goddamn series. Jessica intentionally spat those words out in an attempt to push aside the eerie feel that it gave off.
魔法陣というものかもしれませんが、
Square?
ある種の数字遊びに魔除けが宿るという考え方です。どの列を足しても同じ数字になるみたいなものを皆さんも見聞きしたことがおありでしょう。
あれは四角形の中に埋めた数字の話じゃなかった？これは横一列だもの。何の意味があるのかさっぱりだわ。多分ジェシカちゃんの言うのが正解よ。
I don't think so.
私たちが深く考えたところで意味なんか何もないわ。
Why now, you know? It's like we've gone through all of these deaths without revisiting magic circles, and now here we are again, but more with an alteration, an addition, if you will. And this time it's something that we've never seen before. Why is this something different? Why is this something that stands out? And what does it mean? Even though she said that, she probably suspected that it actually meant something. Aunt Ava was definitely writing that number down on an old receipt or something with a short ballpoint pen. Honestly, I should probably go back and notate that as well. That seems, for some reason, very important. Unless it had some obvious pattern, it would probably be tough to memorize a code made up of an 8-digit number.
これ日にちとかな。
You see, that's what I was thinking.
日にち？何の話？
いや偶然だろうけどな。俺の誕生日7月15日なんだ。
Oh, interesting.
0715が7月15日を示すのかなって思ったら。
Wait, why couldn't it have been like maybe 2 dates? July 15th, November 29th. What would those 2 days necessarily symbolize?
1129もほらその11月29日って読んだらちょうど語呂がいいかなって思ってよ。
Like, why not? Okay, let's say Battler's birthday is July 15th. Whose is possibly on November 29th.
なんでバトラーの誕生日がこんなとこに書いてあるんだよ。そして11月29日ってなんだよ。
俺が知りてえぜ。まあたまたまの偶然だろうけどな。
I mean, we can also think about it this way. Maybe it's a range, right? Maybe we're supposed to take the difference of those days. So let's say it's 16 days from July 15th to the end of July. And then there's another 31 days in August, 30 in September, 31 in October, and then 29 leading up to 11/29. If we add all those numbers up together, does that give us something? I mean, I'm not doing that right now, but like, we're getting over 100 there, right? I'm pretty sure we are.
そう考えたらなんだか不気味になっちまったぜ。11月29日が誰かの誕生日だったりとかするのか？うちの家族は違うぜ。親父も桐江さんもエンジェも違う。もちろん俺のお袋もだ。
心当たりがありませんな。金蔵さんの誕生日でも源氏さんの誕生日でもないはずだ。
Could it be Shannon's birthday?
うちの家族も違うわよ。
But why would it be Shannon's if that was Battler's?
ローザやマリアちゃんでもないわ。うちの家族だって違うぜ。カノン君も違うし、シャノンも違う。私、使用人の人の誕生日にはちゃんとプレゼント渡してるから。
Okay, well
知ってるけど。
there we go. Never mind.
11月29日に誕生日の人間なんて知らないぜ。
What about Beatrice? You know, why not the witch? Why not the Golden Witch's birthday? Once we started imagining that the 8 digits weren't meaningless, but actually 2 dates written together, it really started to look that way. However, its true meaning may be something completely different, or there may be no meaning at all. Anyway, since we don't have any real clues, it's probably pointless to stand around here worrying about it. I think we should heavily notate that shit for sure, but even I'm not entirely sure what it could mean. I have no predictions to make here or anything like that. It's just, this seems very important. The inside of the parlor is much more important. This morning, behind each of the doors with a magic circle drawn on them, had been the body of a victim. So if something new has been added to this door, does that mean something new has been added inside the parlor? When Aunt Ava had tried to open it, she felt the resistance of the lock. She immediately took out a master key and put it in the keyhole. Wait, did they re-lock it? I don't remember. As soon as she opened the door, Aunt Ava let out a high-pitched scream and ran inside. That alone was enough to tell us what had happened inside the room. Dr. Nanjo and I looked at each other, and I shook my head slightly as we entered the parlor.
Georgie! Georgie!
Yeah, there's no hanging in there to be doing. George Anaki lay there crumpled alongside Shannon Shan's corpse. His chest was stained bright red, and judging by his still opened eyes, I'd hate to say it to Aunt Ava, but I couldn't pick up any signs of life. Yeah. Well, let's read this one. This one I'm very curious about, because now we are completely outside of the sacrifices. This is just a killing here. I'm pretty sure at least, right? Corpse discovered in the mansion's parlor. The murder weapon is assumed to be a gun or spear-shaped object. In exchange for his soul, the witch granted an 8-digit number, 07151129. When spoken, a small golden land will be opened. What the fuck does that even mean? Why? What is a small golden land? After moving to take George's pulse, Dr. Nanjo shook his head, wordlessly reporting that George was dead. Brushing him aside, Aunt Ava once again crouched beside George Anaki and started crying at the top of her lungs. With Anaki's death, one thing is certain. The murders hadn't ended on the 8th twilight. The epitaph was being carried out in its complete form, including the 9th twilight, and none shall be left alive. I was really starting to lose track of things. For some reason, Aunt Ava's half-crazed cries actually made me cool down. It'd probably give me a headache, to be completely honest. Crestfallen and exhausted, I flopped onto the sofa and plunked my feet on top of the table. Maybe all these murders numbed my heart. Instead of just being frightened, I felt completely confused. Dad and Kirie-san are dead, and people have been killed off one by one, starting with the servants. And there's been a hell of a lot of them by now. I don't know when the first murder happened, but they might have been killed at a rate of about 1 person per hour by now. I mean, it is crazy. A lot of life has been lost here in one day. We believe that the boat will come for us around 9 a.m. tomorrow. There's still a full 12 hours until then. How many more sacrifices to the witch will there have to be for us to survive? With the 4 of us, if one goes each hour, we won't last any longer than 4 hours. I mean, if we can make it to midnight, cool. We don't even know if we'll last until midnight tonight. Yesterday after lunch, we came into this parlor. Just as they started talking about serving some tea Aunt Rosa had bought, we kids decided to take a walk. Maria was jumping around, wasn't she? Didn't Shannon-chan bring us some cookies? She said Kumasawa-san had baked them or something. Oh yeah, this is when they went to the beach. We're talking about the future, you know, always being friends and whatever. Oh, that's very unfortunate. But we all saw it coming, right? It would have been hilarious if she had baked some mackerel into them, wouldn't it? That's right. I'll never hear Kumasawa Bachan's mackerel jokes again, will I? Well, in episode 4, I'm sure we'll hear something, but also I really hope we hear that laugh. Oh, right. If I only remember stuff about Kumasawa Bachan, that wouldn't be fair to everyone else. Why did Dad and Kirie-san even go outside? It's not like going without food for a day would kill us. So why did Gluttony get a hold of them and make them go out for food? I'll bet that fearless dad of mine just started complaining about being hungry. Probably how it went down, actually, to be honest. Kirie-san, you were supposed to be the brakes for my reckless dad. Why didn't you stop him? I'm sure they thought power in numbers, right? And what about your daughter, Ange? She's still just 6 years old. Don't tell me you plan to leave her in my care. After all, it's doubtful now whether even I'll be able to leave this island alive.
やめなさい。こんな時に争ってどうするんですか。
Wait, what the fuck's going on?
ジェシカさん、やめなさい。
Wait, what is happening? We were lost at our head here for a moment, and now there's a fight going on? It's been kind of noisy for a while. By the time I looked up to see what it was, Jessica and Aunt Ava had suddenly started fighting each other. No, maybe I should say that Jessica was grabbing at Aunt Ava. What?
他に説明がつかない。何をバカなことを。あんたのお父さんたちなんか知るわけないでしょ。ゲストハウスの1階にいたのは誰だよ。エヴァおばさんだ。1階のロビーには父さんと母さんと、そしてエヴァおばさんがいた。生き残ったのは誰だ。エヴァおばさんだけだ。どうして。あんたが犯人だからに決まってるじゃないか。
I guess it wouldn't be a regular Umineko episode if there wasn't a little bit of accusation going on.
じゃあジョージはどうしていなくなったのよ。1階には降りてきてないのよ。じゃあ2階でいなくなったっていうの。2階には誰がいたのよ。あなたたちがいたんじゃない。あなたは知ってたんでしょ。ジョージがこっそりゲストハウスを抜け出すのを。それを 自分は何も知らないような顔を抜け抜けと。あんたがジョージを止めててくれれば。ジョージは。
So I do hate to say it. I really do hate to say it. I'm gonna point my finger at Ava as well. I'm gonna point my finger at Ava as well. I don't necessarily know if she's the culprit. I don't know if she's behind people dying in the realistic sense of this story. But Ava was not there when Kraus and Natsuhi, you know, vanished. Just up and vanished, right? She just so happened to leave, right? Kind of weird, right? And then also she wasn't necessarily around with George, you know, disappearing. It's as if things kind of just worked out for him to be able to disappear, to slip out that window. Ava could have been there, you know? Ava could have had a hand in it. I know, you know, Nanjo for a split second was kind of being blamed for it, but why not Ava, right? And then, you know, there's also the Maria and Rosa deaths. That one strikes me as extremely odd because Ava and Hideyoshi were up on the second floor and Ava was fucking dying, supposedly, right? She was sick all of a sudden, and Hideyoshi was being there for her. Hideyoshi also learned about the fact that, you know, she actually found the gold. But how, right? Like, I feel like there's some missing information somewhere in here. And it kind of all points back towards Ava.
やめなさいというのに、ジェシカさんはずっといとこ部屋にいました。そしてエヴァさんもずっと1階のロビーにいました。
As far as we can tell, yes.
そして2人とも何も悪くない。ただ家族を失って悲しいだけなんです。
Yeah, by the hands of somebody else.
犯人なんか誰もいない。どこにもいない。ただただ魔女のせいなだけなんです。
And it's very interesting that Nanjo is fully believing in the idea of there being a witch. She's a doctor.
だからお二人で憎み合うのはやめなさい。
The witch's fault, huh? I wonder if that's a good way to cool down the situation right now. Yeah, I finally understand why 3 people evaporated from the guest house when all the doors and windows were locked from the inside. There had to have been somebody to play a part in a lot of things here. I don't know about the looped closed room situation, but there had to be some sort of assistance, I feel, in some sort of way, somewhere. I think that's the only way things could really play out the way they did. Even in like previous episodes, there had to have been some sort of assistance. This is what they were after, making us think the culprit was inside and sparking this ugly mutual hatred. It has to be the culprit's, the witch's goal. But if that's the case, how did the culprit lock it from the outside? When Dad's group was attacked, their master key was definitely stolen, but the doors and windows to the guest house were built so that you couldn't lock them from the outside, no matter how hard you tried. So that master key should have had nothing to do with the guest house closed room. Jessica and Aunt Ava were turning their sadness at losing their blood relatives into anger at the person in front of them. Dr. Nanjo was trying to step between them. And I sat on the sofa staring up at the ceiling, thinking about things that didn't even matter anymore with a worn-out expression. I just could not believe that this was the same parlor that had been so warm and pleasant midday yesterday, for just a short time before the typhoon hit. Uh-oh, oh shit. What the fuck? Did Ava actually just shoot Jessica? Did that just happen? No. No. There's no way. The sudden sound of a gunshot shook me out of my half-asleep trance. Smoke was rising out of the barrel of the gun Aunt Ava held. Jessica had fallen to the floor and was covering both her eyes. Aunt Ava and Dr. Nanjo were looking down to her in shock.
大丈夫ですか、ジェシカさん。ジェシカさん。
私のせいじゃないわよ。
You're holding the gun.
あんたがよせっていうのに突っかかってくるから。
おいおい、どうしたってんだ。何事なんだ。
So did Jessica grab at Aunt Ava, which turned into a scuffle? Did they start fighting over Aunt Ava's gun? Did some kind of impact cause the trigger to be pulled? I mean, it could have been an accident. A very fucking tragic one, but I didn't know if the bullet had grazed her, or if she had been burned by the discharge. But either way, Jessica was covering both of her eyes, screaming, it hurts, and rolling around on the floor.
大丈夫。落ち着いて。大した怪我ではありませんぞ。気をしっかり。
What the fuck happened? Dr. Nanjo let Jessica borrow his shoulder, saying that he would tend to her in the servant room. The servant room in this mansion has a bed and a first aid kit, and was able to function as an infirmary. We're splitting up then, are we?
父さんと母さんの仇殺してやる。殺してやる。私じゃないわよ。
I love inner conflict.
ジェシカさん、傷に触りますから、それ以上騒がないで。さあ、使用人室に行きましょう。
Nanja, the last time we went to the servant room for you to work on somebody's injuries and shit, it did not end well for you. That's all I'm saying, man. Jessica continued to curse Aunt Ava at her parents' murderer, or as her parents' murderer, and it seemed that Aunt Ava could not conceal her trembling at the fact that she had pulled the trigger even if it had been an accident. Hey, you can still get charged for that shit is all I'm saying.
あの子が掴みかかってきたからこんなことに。私は殺してなんかないわよ。それよりジョージは誰が殺したの？そうよ、ジョージは誰が殺したのよ。ジョージ、ジョージ、私は悪くない。私は悪くない。
待てよエヴァおばさん、一人になるな。
We all separated in our own directions, didn't we? I didn't know if it was because Aunt Ava couldn't bear her mistake, or if she had given up control of her body to anger at the person who had killed her only son, or if it was both of those all mixed together. At any rate, she ran out into the corridor, yelling, fearful, and screaming. I was also worried about Jessica's condition, but right then, I couldn't leave Aunt Ava alone. Why would she go off on her own in this mansion of all places? Is she suicidal? Yes. Dr. Nanjo took Jessica towards the servant room. I chased after Aunt Ava, dashing into the depths of the mansion. Oh boy. Things... How do these things happen, right? How do we continue to get so fucking vulnerable here, right? How do we continue to allow ourselves to get separated into groups that can be picked off of or individually separated? It's ridiculous. No shit they're gonna die off. They're allowing themselves to get killed. Jesus Christ. All right, we'll wrap it up there. God damn. I will admit, I started to wake up a whole lot more here as we got to the end here. But wow, just that was very surprising. That gunshot is what I needed to wake up. I don't really know what to say. I really fucking don't. This is we're seeing yet again, and we've seen this as well on the ends of the previous episodes, as we get closer and closer to midnight, everybody begins to lose their collective shit. And it's both really fun to watch and also frustrating because you just want them to be able to succeed, right? You want things to work out for the humans for once, but as we go through these stories, nope, it's just gonna be some other type of, tragic end for us all. It's just, it boggles the mind. When they start to do things right, then they, it's like they realize, oh, wait a minute, we're supposed to be fucking stupid. And then they continue to do things that just allow themselves to die. It's really silly. But anyways, thank you all for tuning into this one. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that fancy jazz, and I will see you all in the next one. Take it easy.